Hey, what's going on everyone? Mekkah here, back with another Fire Emblem archetype tier list, and today we're going to take a look at the archers, the early game archers, the arrow boys, and not as some people would call it, the Gordons. That is an archetype that doesn't really communicate anything whatsoever, so just like with the Merrics, we're going to sweep that one aside right away. We're just going to call them what they are, which is archers. Just like with the Merrics, we're going to sweep that one aside right away. We're just going to call them what they are, which is archers. And yeah, let me just go over which of them are on here real quick. So you might wonder why there's 5 of the same person on here, but it's actually 2 different people in several different games. So Gordon appears in FE1, which this site doesn't have sprites for, or portraits for. So instead we have FE3 Gordon, Book 1 and Book 2, Shadow Dragon Gordon, New Mystery Gordon, and this is Ryan, his younger brother. He appears in Book 2 of FE3 and in New Mystery, aka FE12. So yeah, that's gonna be hard to tell apart. Then we have Python. He's in Echoes. That's where his portrait is from, but he's also in Fire Emblem 2, Jeigan, Jamka, or there's like a different name for him, but I tend to call him Jamka. From FE4, Genealogy. Faval, who is Bridget's son in Genealogy. He's a kid. He's a 2nd gen person. Aselio, who is the substitute for Faval if you didn't get him. Tanya from Fire Emblem 5, Thracia 776, my boy Ronan from the same game, Thracia 776, my favorite game, my favorite guy from a favorite game. We got Waltz from FE6, the guy who lived the longest by staying on the bench. Dorothy from FE6 as well. Rebecca from FE7, Will from FE7, Naomi from FE8, Rolf from both FE9 and FE10, so Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. See, he didn't grow up a whole lot. And then we got Virion from Awakening and Takumi from Fates. I think he's playable in Birthright and Revelations, but not in Conquest. So those are the incarnations that I have. Now, before I divided them into tiers, I gotta say, none of these are going to be very good, I'm afraid. Archers in Fire Emblem are pretty famous for being a pretty terrible class. Snipers and, you know, archers on a horse, they can get by. Most people can see the value in those, but early game archers, they tend to be really bad, or like either salvageable or just really, really bad. But it's Fire Emblem. You can use almost any character to some level of effectiveness and they will turn out alright. Generally, their biggest problem by far is not being able to attack on player phase. Because bows tend to be locked to, you know, just 2 range and a little more. They generally cannot counter on enemy phase. And that means they can only attack once in a whole turn, where someone think like a Cavalier or a Lord guy or a Knight guy, something like that, they can, you know, position themselves to counter enemies on enemy phase. But if you do that with an archer, for one, they don't do any damage in return, and for 2, they tend to be a little bit more fragile than most people, so they also die more quickly. So kind of a poor design. There are games where archers are implemented well, so that they actually work kind of well. But unfortunately, these guys don't really get advantage. Like, take advantage of them very much. But some of these I actually think are somewhat decent. A lot of them are kind of trash. Now, with the Gotos, I was being a little nice to them. I said, you know what? I know you guys have like no availability to speak of, and I like to normally take availability into account. But I'm just gonna, you know, give you benefit of the doubt here and say, whatever. Your availability won't really count against you this time. I'm gonna rate you higher if you're more available. I'm not gonna like dock you a million points for not being available. I can't really feasibly do that with the archers, because there's no ignoring that a lot of them don't have an enemy phase. Also, some of them do have an enemy phase, and I want to reward them for it quite handsomely, in fact. So yeah, I'm afraid we're gonna have to be a little bit harsh on these guys. Not that I don't like them, not that I think they cannot be used, but if you're comparing them to other units, they really don't look very good. So, Gordon. Again, this thing doesn't have FE1 sprites, FE1 portraits. I need to stop calling them sprites. I've never finished FE1 or FE3 Book 1, so I generally don't really have a lot to say about those. But I will say that FE3 Book 2 Gordon is one of the few archers I actually like quite a bit. I saw I think it was a 0% growth run by Velkoma, where Gordon was actually quite good. One of the reasons he's quite good is because Book 2 and FE12, you know, they're actually pretty good for archers. The sniper class is kind of good in that game, in New Mystery in particular, because enemies hit so hard, you want to counterattack, you want to avoid counterattacks. Lunatic Reverse especially is kind of nice to snipers, which is the highest difficulty, which I always try to take into account. But I also try to like take into account lower difficulty sometimes. But in New Mystery especially, that's really good for Gordon actually. And like just bows in general are so good because their flying enemies are very common and very threatening. There's a lot of wyverns even in the early game, and mid game there's like flying dragons that you want to shoot down. So having archers is just very good in that particular book. So based on that, I would actually, I don't know if I go all the way up to C tier, which is, I know it sounds very bad that I'm like, hey, I like this guy and I'm gonna put him in like C tier. It spells not a whole lot of good things for this. You know what? We can put this guy in B tier. We can start out nice. We don't want to start off by being not nice, if you know what I mean. That'd be very mean. Also, I don't know if you guys can hear, but there's like a storm outside my window, and it's my mic might pick it up. I don't know. But yeah, that's this Gordon. Shadow Dragon Gordon is not as lucky. Still okay. Shadow Dragon. It's not like it's still a fairly player face heavy game. That game is all about weapon effectiveness. In fact. Flyers are not as common, but they are there, and having a bow user is pretty good. The funny thing about Shadow Dragon and New Mystery is that Gordon and Ryan in those games, they can just reclass to another class if they want to. Their specialty is their higher bow rank. They start with D bows, whereas most people would start with like E. And promoted units could just reclass to sniper and get C bows, and don't really have to train as a sniper for it. That leads to, I'm pretty sure it's C bows. Someone like promoted Pella or re-promotes like, I don't know, Aaron or something. They could just reclass the sniper and get access to bows, so it's not like very exclusive for them, but having a trained bow user is kind of nice. You do obtain the Parthia fairly early in both Shadow Dragon and New Mystery. Very powerful A-rank bow that only people who've really trained in bow rank can use, so that's pretty nice. But of course, like I know George can do that. In fact, all these archers have a problem where somewhere later on there tends to be a sniper that kind of outclasses them, but I'm going to ignore that for the most part because I don't really think there's a whole lot of value in saying, well, this unit is eclipsed by another unit, because that doesn't really tell us anything about the other unit. And if they're like, if the other unit is so good and this unit is also good, then you just use both, So, yeah, Shadow Dragon Gordon. Okay, so when I played Shadow Dragon with Mangs, or I co-hosted this Let's Play, I put him at 1 star, and I think he started him out at 1 star too because he has basically no personal base to speak of. But he does have deep bows and some useful chip utilities. So at some point, I was definitely okay on board with upgrading him to like at least D tier, which when you think about it is basically 2 stars, which I think is reasonable for him. I would not go as far as to say he's like a mid tier like here. I don't think he's that good. He's definitely one of the worst units in the game, but in the early game you don't really have any alternatives to using him, which is actually something that a lot of these archers have. It's like a good advantage for them, because if you don't really have any alternatives, then the unit's utility basically comes for free. Like, it's not like when you don't use Gordon, you get to use someone else instead. No, it's Gordon or nothing. So any utility he provides is for free, which I really like. And the same kind of goes for FE12 Gordon. The funny thing about FE12 Gordon is at some point in the prologue you get a choice, and you either unlock, either fight against George or you fight against Athena. And if you beat Athena, you get Athena. But if you beat George, a pre-promoted sniper, you get Gordon, who's just an archer. You just get like a worse archer, which I think is kind of funny. I tried to use him in my New Mystery Let's Play with the Wheel of Death. Unfortunately, around like the 5th prologue chapter or so, like basically the 5th chapter in the game, Wheel of Death landed on Gordon. I had to suicide him, I had to let him go. So I never got a chance to really try him out, which is unfortunate. But it also probably saved everyone watching that Let's Play from having to experience a bunch of but Mars memes, so maybe it was for the better. For now though, I would say he's fairly okay in that game, as far as archers go. Again, it's a pretty bow-friendly game, so I'm at least gonna put him in here. I think he's fine in that game. I might even... I can even see him being here. I think it might actually be better than this one, because, in FE3 Book 2, there isn't really a whole lot of reason to use this guy for the very long term, because at some point you're able to enemy phase your way through quite efficiently. Whereas this guy, like, he's in a game where there's a higher difficulty setting where you do actually have a good reason to use a specialized unit like Gordon. So I'm going to put him ahead of him, but there's not much of a difference. Ryan is much of the same story. He's only FE3 Book 2 and New Mystery. And the fact that he joins in Prologue is very good for him. He's even useful on like Lunatic and stuff. From what I know, I haven't finished those difficulties, but I do know that like the ability to avoid counterattacks and just having the ability to build up levels and bow rank is quite good. He's not as good as someone like Luke as far as I know, but he's still pretty damn decent in that mode. So I'm going to put the FE12 version at the very least somewhere here. I don't know, I don't think he would be better than this. Yeah, we'll put him here, because again, the FE3 Book 2 has the one, FE3 Book 2 enemies are very shitty, and the worse enemies are, the worse archers tend to be. Because if enemies are very shitty, you can just put someone else in their range and they will kill them at enemy phase. But for archers, they can only shoot one guy down per player phase. So just looking at the overall like amount of kills they produce, they will just always be less than a player phase unit or than an enemy phase unit. And in addition, you just also have to like protect them. No matter how good the stats of an archer might be, you always have to protect them from enemy phase. Because like most enemies can attack from long range, so you always have to shield them a little bit. Doesn't matter how shitty the archer is or how good they are. And that kind of sucks for them when, you know, you don't actually need their 2 range. If that makes sense. But FE3 Book 2, Ryan has that same problem. I'm still gonna put him in the alright level, because, you know, he can still become a sniper in like FE3 Book 2. That's still pretty good. Still pretty okay, I think. But Gordon is better. He joins at a higher level. You don't have the option to unlock him early like you do in the FE12 version, because he's not around in the prologue. Or rather, there's no prologue chapters in FE3 Book 2, whereas there is a new mystery. That hurts this this version of Gordon, if that makes sense. It's already so hard for me to tell these apart, so I'm glad I'm done with them. Alright, done with the green-haired archer boys. We'll won't get another one until Bolt pops up, and even he's like only somewhat green. Python, I've played Gaiden several times. I've played Echoes once, so I know a little bit more about this guy. I feel like almost everyone finishes those games thinking Python is a god, and there's a good reason for that. Because for some insane reason, they buffed archers to hell and back when it comes to their range. They don't only have 2 range, but they also have 1 range, and then their promoted class is like, I'm pretty sure it's like 4 range or something. It's stupid how much range they get. And they just kind of eliminated the whole thing about archers not being able to attack at close range. It's stupid. Funnily enough, they don't get fire effectiveness unless they use an actual weapon. Like if they use their defaults, I guess we could call them iron bows, and they don't have effectiveness against flyers. But once you get like a steel bow or a killer bow, depending on what game it is, I think the killer bow is echoes only. Those are effective against flyers. Not that there's a whole lot of enemy flyers in that game, but there's a couple. Flying gargoyles and shit, kind of good at that. I spoke way too fast there. Anyway, the point is, once he gets to Bow Knight, he's super powerful, and the 1 range does help him. But I think people might often forget how bad Python's stats are at the start. Accuracy is a big problem in Gaiden, and Python is probably one of the reasons for it. He's very inaccurate. A lot of people are, and a lot of people suffer from, like, for example, the plus avoid tiles indoors maps have. Python doesn't know how to hit the broadside of the barn. He's really bad at just hitting stuff. I hate it so much. You can never count this guy hitting anything. To be fair, a lot of people have this problem, but I've noticed it's especially bad with Python. I think it's because his stats are generally just not very good. They do eventually become good. In Echoes, your bases and growths don't really matter much, in my opinion, because whenever you promote, you don't just get a set promo bonus like in FE GBA, for example, like where you just get, like, say, every time you promote a Cavalier to Paladin, they get plus 2 HP, plus 2 strength. I made those number up, but you get the point, right? But in Echoes, they look at your stats the moment you promote. They compare them to the base stats of the class you're promoting to. The class bases matter, and if your stats at that point are lower than the class bases that you're about to promote to, you just get boosted to that. So you always have the minimum of what your class has, and usually those class bases tend to be higher than whatever you're promoting to. Because in Echoes, there's no real penalty for promoting early. You just get access to a promotion at a certain level. I think in his case it's like level 7 or something, but it might be wrong. I think it goes like Archer, Sniper, Bow Knights, if I remember correctly. And you want to promote as soon as possible, because then you get to take advantage of those better bases early. And the only way you can outgrow your promotion that way is by like grinding a lot, which you really shouldn't be doing. There's no reason to do that. It takes forever, and you don't really get any significant reward of it. You better just take advantage of the bases early. Like, I know I'm not exactly biased for late promotion, but this is the worst game to late promote in. Python, I do think, is one of the better ones of this whole list in the end. I don't think there's any other archers in that game that I can really rate. I considered putting like a villager in here, but none of them really have an affinity for archers. Some of them might be better than others at it, but in the end, I don't think there's really a better archer for this spot. I know there's definitely at least one guy that I turn into an archer every once in a while, but I really don't remember who it would be. Oh wait, I don't know. Okay, let me find him real quick. Python, I'm gonna put him like, I think he's still the best of the bunch just because of all the buffs he got, but it's still B tier. Let me find the other archer. There we go. Almost forgot Leon, but found him a little bit earlier than Athos, I guess. Leon is kind of the same as Python, but he's on Celica's route instead of Python's route. But I think they're about the same unit, basically. They're just held up by how good their class bases are and how good their class properties are, like the amount of range they get. That's really all there is to them. It should be your very high priority to get them promoted and get into high level, get into bow net ASAP, get into sniper ASAP, get the extra range. I think sniper even has 3 range and stuff like that. It's super good, but you gotta train them to get them there. I feel like Leon might be a little bit easier to get there in that respect. I feel like Celica just has more tools available to make it happen. Ulm tends to be a little bit more starved on resources, but you can like trade them back and forth. Another thing that makes him really good in Echoes in particular is the ability to forge a killer bow. I don't remember exactly how much it costs or what you need at the base for it. I just remember I didn't get one until like part 3, part 4, something like that, but it's definitely worth you to dedicate resources to because critical rate is pretty good. But don't interrogate me on like details. But yeah, I like these in Gaiden and I like these in Echoes quite a bit actually. So much for good archers. Probably there's a couple more that do decently. Jamka is one that a lot of people really like. A lot of first timers for FE4 really take a liking to him because what happens is when he joins, he's like right in position to take out like a bunch of enemy archers, and he really gets to show off his skills. Like he joins with the killer bow, and a lot of new players, when a character joins with a certain strong weapon, or they get it through a conversation of some kind, they're very reluctant to take it away, especially in FE4 where there's no free trading. People are like, okay, Jamka's really good. Why? Because he has the killer bow. But you can trade the killer bow around, you can sell it to Medir, and Medir makes much better use of it in fact. So like just the fact that someone else can use it means that it doesn't really count as something for Jamka. It's something that it's good that he can use it, and it's definitely nice to take advantage of. But you don't need to use Jamka to use the killer bow. And killer bow is a lot of what makes Jamka good, because the other bows are actually quite inaccurate. So without the killer bow, Jamka becomes quite a bit worse. But when he joins, he's like right in the middle of a bunch of hunters, or he can get near a bunch of hunters and take him on an enemy phase. That's like the only situation in like the entire game where Jamka gets to have such a productive enemy phase, where he's not hurt by his lack of a mount because he joins in a spirit forest, which is full of trees that stop horses from moving more than 2 tiles, whereas he moves 3. He's near the action, whereas he doesn't have to like catch up to a bunch of horses that have been moving ahead of him for several turns, like the very next chapter. And almost all the enemies attack at 2 range instead of 1 range, so actually gets their counterattack. So Jamka gets a very good first impression on a lot of people, and I think that kind of biases them in favor of him, but they tend to forget that later on, like next chapter later on, like 4 turns later on, he's not as good anymore. But yeah, horses are so important in FE4. Again, I know I'm biased towards movement, but it's so important in FE4 to have a mount. Jamka doesn't have one, and it really sucks for him. And like even when he gets to a bunch of enemies, he can only take out 1 per turn, like all these archers. And generally, FE4 enemies move in such large squads that it's kind of hard to accommodate Jamka and make sure he's okay, especially if he's like with a bunch of foot units. Like if he's accompanying Ira and Holden and Dew, they don't really have time to babysit Jamka, protect him on enemy phase. They've got their own things to worry about. So Jamka is very inflexible on FE4. He can kill one enemy very, very hard. He does have pursuit. He does have charge, and he can have crit with the killer bow, and he has adept, so he will generally murder someone. It's like a machine gun build, as Mangs will cringefully put it, but it's really, he just deletes one enemy, and that's basically it. And even like if you take away his killer bow, he's not even reliable at killing a single enemy. He's very likely to attack it again, but it's not guaranteed. And I feel like the minimum you should require of a foot unit is that they one-round things, which ironically they have a lot of trouble doing. All of them, they all have trouble with tooth-killing things at first. They can do it when they promote, but almost everyone can. So, funnily enough, I actually think Jamka is one of the worst of these. Just because of like the whole problems I just described, which are problems for all these, don't get me wrong, to some extent, but Jamka I feel like has some of the worst. I've actually seen people argue somewhat successfully that Jamka is one of the worst units in FE4. Which is funny when you think about it, because when he joins, he seems so good. They put him in a very good position to make him look good, but he really isn't. He really isn't. I would almost put him down here, honestly. And that's not to say that he's like... He's very good at killing the arena, I'll give him that much. He can build up gold very nicely, because in the arena, his lack of movement and his lack of counterattacks don't matter. And in fact, the arena is easier for 2 ranged enemies, so he has that to take advantage of, but not enough to salvage him, really. He's not very good. Then we got Faval, who has all the problems that Jamka named. He does have access to the Ufel, which is the holy bow that he inherits from Bridget. That gives him a ton of might, but like I said before, even though he gets a 30 might bow, that doesn't really let him get to enemies sooner. It doesn't let him counterattack on enemy phase. Gets good stat bonuses from it, but actually the hit is kind of bad. He has accuracy problems against enemies. Jamka does too if he doesn't have the killer bow. Like the hit rates on bows, to like illustrate this, killer bow is 100 hit. Like, just straight up, it has base 100 hit. Other bows have around 70, so he suffers a 30 hit drop, which is very bad. And Faval has the same problem. I think the Ufel might be a bit more accurate than other bows, I don't remember. But the point is he can still miss, and that's pretty bad. But he will generally tooth kill anything he will usually double. The problem is getting him to fights and then protecting him from enemies whenever he does get to fights. And yeah, those are both pretty bad. I think Jamka's joining situation makes him a bit better than Faval. Faval doesn't even have that. He just joins like halfway through the second generation and is unable to do very much from that point onward. Like, you might think next chapter is Thracia, right? Next chapter is chapter 9. There's a bunch of Draconites, or even the end of chapter 8. But again, the problem isn't that he doesn't kill enemies. Like, the effectiveness on flyers is almost irrelevant. It's just he doesn't counter them on enemy phase. So you can put someone like Seti in range of them instead. He'll kill them all, even if they have javelins. I will say there's one weird quirk about FE4 AI where I think they're more tempted to use javelins against you at 2 range, even though they could attack at 1 range. I've often seen them suicide into your archers like that. I'm not at that point yet in FE4 Gen 2 with Mangs. We started up the Let's Play again a while ago, but we haven't started recording chapter 8 yet. And we're in like chapter 7 right now. But I'm curious to see if we can take advantage of it somehow. I would actually like to see if it's possible to give an enemy face, because there are some Draconite squads that have javelins, but until I've seen that AI quirk, I'm not going to give him a better rating over it. Aselio is the same deal, but he's like the substitute for Faval, so he's just Faval, but worse in every way. He does have interesting conversation with a villager. That's really all there is to it. But other than that, he doesn't have anything that these two guys have, and these two already have very big problems. So I think this is where this guy belongs. I like him. He has a funny headband and everything, a funny face. Like, the subs get more characterization than the kids in that game for some reason. I don't know why. They have like all these secret events and stuff. It's kind of cool. I don't remember what his secret events it gives him. I just remember it doesn't fix his problems. Not a very good guy. So yeah, Archer's bad. What else is new? Then we got Tanya and Ronan from FE5. Now in Thracia, I think a big problem that people have with archers in Thracia is that they cannot capture. Because capturing is done at 1 range. What you basically do is you do a round of combat, but with reduced stats on yourselves, and if you manage to successfully bring the enemy to 0 HP, instead of killing them, you capture them, you forcefully rescue them, you're rescuing an enemy, and then what you can do is you can trade their weapons to yourselves and give them to you, and archers can't do that, but I think it's very relevant, very relevant problem for them, because you generally shouldn't be capturing with anyone anyway that's not like a brave lance or brave axe user or like a brave sword. A lot of people try to capture with, I don't know, like iron swords and battle axes, looking at you, Chaz, and it's such a waste of time. You should only be capturing with people who are really good at it, and like, there's only a couple people who are really good at it. It's like Dagdar and Finn, and that's almost it for the early game. Later on you get like Ralph, I guess. Anyone who can use like the Brave Axe, have like a ton of strength, durability, etc. They should be doing it, but everyone else shouldn't be doing it. So I don't really hold that against them per se. But it does still suck that they don't have an enemy phase. There are some good bows in Thracia. There's the Brave bow that you get for basically free. Yeah, it's very heavy. It actually takes a while before Ronan can use it. I've never used Tanya for the whole game, really. I just use Ronan every run now, because when I did my Thracia Iron Man, my very first one, the ones that an actual Let's Play, I used Ronan, like, at first it was a bit of a joke, and then he got a movement point level up, and then I deployed him, like, the comment section went wild over Ronan for some reason, because he was always activating movement stars, which is basically you move a unit, and then they have like a random chance to move again, and almost all units have 1 movement star or 0. Ronan has like 3, so whenever you move him, there's a 15% chance he can just move again. And he did that a lot. He grew movement in like chapter 2, which is stupid. It's like a 3% chance of happening, but it happened. And they did it again in chapter 8, and from there on I used him. And then, well, story went on. It was very cool and very tragic. And if you want to know what happened, you should check out the series. But the point is, I have a very deep connection with Ronan. I love him very much. Not so much with Tanya. I don't love archers in general. But I do think that these, like, they're salvageable. They're okay. Thracia is not a very enemy-heavy game in most chapters. Most of the time you have to do different things than just killing a bunch of enemies, which is what makes the game so interesting to me. And Ronan has a lot of chapters where he can contribute just through his movement stars and high movements, and he has adapts as well, which is nice. Tanya doesn't really have much going for her, except she supports Orson and Dagdar. Gives him a little bit of extra hit and avoid, as well as crit and crit avoid, and those are pretty nice. Orson doesn't really need a boost very much, but he does appreciate it nonetheless. It's always nice when he's more reliable at killing everything. And Tanya doesn't have to be in enemy range to support him. He just needs to be 3 tiles away from him. And Ronan doesn't really support anyone, but he gets a support bonus from Leaf. Supports are not always 2-way in Thracia. Sometimes he's just one character giving another boost. Anyway, I don't think they're very good, honestly. Like, objectively rating them very high wouldn't be good. I do think Ronan can be very good at specific things. Like, he can just kill like 1 Dark Mage with a Brave Bow very easily, and he doesn't really need much strength to one-round with it. He does have they both have strength issues. They both have very bad bases. I'm not gonna lie about it. Ronan has a very high magic growth for some reason. Base is kind of shitty though, so it takes a while for him to be a mage killer. But Tanya doesn't have that. But Ronan can take on enemy mages in a pinch if you need him to. Position him just right, and there's some places where he can do it. But it's not very common, so I would say Ronan is like around here somewhere. They're like salvageable, like okay. And then Tanya is like kind of like that, but not as good. But she has the supports. Also, my dimensions are getting messed up. Surprise. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, post-production Mekkah has hopefully fixed it by now. If not, yell at him. Anyway, Waltz. I put him at the top of my FE6 Iron Man tier list as a joke because everyone says Waltz, and Waltz is a meme. And I put him like, I call the top tier like literally just W, and I put Waltz in there because his name starts with a W. But obviously you shouldn't be there. Obviously, you shouldn't be there. Obviously, Waltz is just an early game archer like everyone else. He is in a game where archers should be good, where archers are theoretically pretty high, just for like similar reasons as FE12 and FE3 Book 2 is like there's a lot of flyers, and the enemies hit very hard, so having a ranged attack that doesn't let you take a counter is very nice. And then like in FE6 also, 1-2 range weapons like hand axes and javelins are very bad. They have very low hits compared to FE7 and FE8, so killing a bunch of enemies with javelins and hand axes is not very common unless you have like supports to boost your hit rate. I have noticed that when playing FE6 a lot. It does work when you have supports, but generally a lot of people play without supports, I feel like. I think that's more fun too. I think supports are a bit broken. Like either you abuse them and you just spam enter and you get a bunch of them, or you just don't really pay attention to them and then you generally won't end up getting any except like Royal Lina C, because that one is like instant. But generally, I don't really count supports in favor of characters if you have to build them the GBA way, especially FE6 where supports are notoriously slow. So yeah, I'm not taking supports into account here. But Waltz has some nice early game chip damage in chapters 1 through like 5. He doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It's like significant in chapters 1 and 2, and in 3 it kind of fades out, and then in chapter 4 you're dealing like 3 damage to a cavalry if you're lucky. So he's pretty garbage in those, but he has some early game utility. I'll give him that. He's alright. I would put him around. Well, I'm not going to put him over Jamka because that will make people very angry, so around here maybe? I don't know, man. Hey, is this FE12? No, this is FE11 Gordon. Alright, I would say they're about the same really, which is funny because FE6 early game cast is very much like FE1 and FE3 Book 1's early game cast, so that's fitting. I would say, I don't know, both of them have very, very bad stats, like very, very bad. Very strength, like if you're bad at both strength and speed, you have such a huge problem in any Fire Emblem game, honestly. And a lot of these archers suffer from that. Like some of them, like Rebecca has a lot of speed to her name, for example, once she grows at least. But Waltz and Gordon, they don't really have that at all. Yeah, huge issues. They get doubled by enemies, they barely do any damage. So like they're already in a bad class that's like less productive than everything else, and then they're also just bad. It's very bad. Same goes for Dorothy really, except she has no early game utility. So I killed Dorothy off in my FE6 run by accident. I was playing chapter 7. I was paying attention to the chat more than anything. I was doing like a bunch of math to make sure she would survive and that other people would survive. And I tried to use her to like lure a wyvern over. I was like under the impression she would survive because she wasn't getting doubled, but I didn't take into account that the fact that the guy was holding a steel lance and he could just one-shot her, which he ended up doing. And that was my first death, and that was very sad. But, you know, sucks. At least she gained notoriety through that, because honestly Dorothy is a very forgettable character. She does have effectiveness against wyverns, which can be nice in chapter 7. Which is why I deployed her in the first place, but it never really happened. She does have hit rate issues against them though, but then again, anything in FE6 has hit rate issues, so I'm not going to dock too many points for that. But generally, this is one of the worst archers on the list. Might just end up being the worst overall, depending. Then we got Becca, aka Rebecca. She's an FE7. She has a lot of fans. A lot of people love Rebecca, probably because she's a cute girl or whatever. I personally have never really seen the appeal as a unit or as a character. I like that she tells Sane to fuck off, and then I dislike how she ends up marrying him instead. Different pairings, why? But yeah, FE7 has a big problem. You know, I think in every game so far, or almost every game, effectiveness has been pretty good. It's a little different than FE4, but in most of these games, it's like triple effectiveness, which means your bow has triple might when you're using it against flyers and other things that are weak to it. Rebecca's an FE7, and FE7 English version, bow effectiveness is only 2 times, so Rebecca cannot even one-shot a Pegasus Knight, which is very sad. She does about the same damage as someone with like a Silver Lance, which is pretty pathetic when you're supposed to be effective against them. That sucks. That really hurts her. Also FE7, Rebecca has a lot of speed, growth. She doesn't really have a very good base, but she does have a good growth. But speed in FE7 in the mid to late game is kind of worthless because almost everything is very slow. The only thing you need speed against are like heroes and like, what's the other thing? Valkyries. But unfortunately, I don't think she's even fast enough to double those reliably, depending on her level. If you train her a lot, then yeah, she'll probably do it. But generally, Rebecca's not the kind of person that will like double mercenaries in the mid game, for example. That's what you need speed from like Geese level for, who has both a good base of like 14 to 15 and a good growth of like, I think it's like 50, 55. Rebecca, with her like base of 7 speed or like 8 speed, whatever it is, not very good. It's not going to double mercenaries very quickly. So that one use of high speed is completely useless. And then strength is low, HP is low, defense is low, all our other stats are pretty bad. I think our luck is okay, but everyone knows luck is the worst stat. So Rebecca, I would put her in E tier as well. Put her. I would actually say she's worse than Dorothy in that regard, because Dorothy has chapter 7 where she can shoot some wyverns down. Rebecca doesn't even really have a niche like that. Like even Will, who has the same problems as Rebecca, but then he also doesn't have good speed. He tries to be more balanced between strength and speed. His strength is okay growth-wise, but his base still isn't very good. And his speed is like, he accomplishes it to be unreliable at doubling in FE7 as a growth unit in a game where enemy speed is so low. And even there, Will doesn't double. Well, he doubles very slow things, but not most enemies. He doesn't double reliably in FE7 as a growth unit, which makes him terrible. Like if he was any other class, he'd be bad too, but he's also an archer. So on top of everything that he doesn't have going for him, he's also an archer. You can train him in limb mode, but doesn't really get him anywhere significant as far as I remember. I've never really done it, to be honest, because he's just not very good. But I would say Will was probably the worst unit in FE7 besides like maybe like Nino, Carla, Wallace, that kind of illustrious group of people. But in his joining chapter, in his rejoining chapter in like Eliwood and Hard Hector mode, he does have a thing where you can put him in range of 2 Pegasus Knights and enemy phase them, which he does better than Kent and Sane, because you know, a bow is better than javelins against them. So we can 2-shot those Pegasus Knight and help Lynn survive, which is pretty okay. And for that alone, I think he does more than Rebecca does in the whole game. And again, I know every unit is usable in Fire Emblem. You can train these to be pretty good. In normal modes, they're still pretty shit compared to everyone else, but they can still kill enemies. They can still be serviceable for you. You can use them in your playthroughs and they'll be fine. But compared to everyone else, they will still be worse, no matter what. As long as you use some kind of criteria and not just who's the cutest archer girl, Rebecca will always be worse than your other units. Sorry, but that's the way it is. FE7 is very enemy phase focused. You can give someone a javelin and kill almost everything in your range. But no matter how good your Rebecca might be, like if she gets like speed and strength and HP and defense on every level up, she still won't be as good as someone like Lowen, just because enemy phase exists. Unfortunate. Same problem for Naomi, really. She's in a game where you can just, you give Seth or Franz or even fucking Ford a javelin, they'll be more productive in their life than Naomi probably ever will be. There's nothing really going for her. The one nice thing about Naomi compared to a lot of these others is that when she promotes, she does get a horse. Kind of like Python, so that might sound kind of good. She also has a very fast support with Colm, so that's one of the few support conversations you don't have to grind for. So +1 attack and like +5 crit and stuff. You can build it even further if you're into building supports, that's kind of nice. She's the only one using an Orion's Bolt in the game, and you get one very early. She can promote her whenever she wants. Her stats are still very bad. Like she has like roughly the same stat build as Rebecca. Low HP, low defense, low strength, high speed once you get going, although still a fairly modest base. But overall not very strong at all. I would put her around, I don't even know if she's worse or better than Rebecca. The horse promotion, it doesn't really help her very much because her stats are just so bad. But it can help a little bit, I guess. It makes her better than Rebecca, I guess. But I still like this free utility of shooting down 2 Pegasus Knights in the whole game better than the addition of a horse, which sounds strange. But these are units that I think the free utility is worth much more than trying to turn them into a long-term growth units. I know that might be like... Okay, so if you were to train her as like a proper unit in your team, it's probably more like this. It's probably more like this, but she's never going to be better. I think he does better. He actually doesn't do bad in combat when he gets there, you know. He actually has like the capability to use a silver bow at base and the ability to double things. He can kill all the wyverns in Thracia, which I said isn't a very big deal for these, but I said they're bad despite it, okay? It's the good trait, it's okay. It's just not, you know, good enough to get him anywhere higher. But yeah, I'm not going to put her over as Celio, I'm sorry. Then we have Rolf. So you know how I said for like this little group right here that their early game utility was like okay, nice, like you don't have any alternatives. They didn't even give that to Rolf. He's in FE9. He's like part of the Girl Mercenaries, sort of. He's like the little brother of Boyd and Oscar, so he's around them. But they never let him battle until chapter 8 or 9. So, and then he still joins at level 1 with like nothing going for him except very, very bad stats. This is one of the few units in Path of Radiance I would actually call bad, because in that game you can make anyone good with just bonus experience and forges. But Rolf doesn't even have that. He has nothing going for him. He shouldn't be fighting. Look at him. He's a fucking baby. He's so small. He's supposed to look a little bit like Waltz and Gordon, I think. He's supposed to be a direct reference, but somehow they made him even worse because he doesn't even join in chapter 1. He joins so late compared to them with the same bases that someone like Waltz would have had. He's so bad. I can't believe how bad his bases are. He's terrible. Like I remember on Max was playing Maniac mode, he's getting one rounded by enemies. He got crit to death like right away. So fucking bad. So fucking bad. I would say this is probably the worst one on the list, actually. I would say he's the worst one on the list. I'm sorry. Like, I know he's cute and all, but he's Rolf. He's a big joke. I don't even remember if the Rolf's bow... I think it is in that game. I think he might even join with it. I don't remember exactly when he gets it, but it's not very good. It's like... I don't think it's even stronger than iron, but let me look that up real quick. Okay, yeah, so it's an 8 might bow, and it has 6 might, or like an iron bow has 6 might and Rolf's bow has 8 might, so it's a little better than an iron bow and a little weaker than a steel bow. But at least it doesn't weigh him down like a steel bow would. And then get it. I think it comes with it. Okay, he comes with it. Yeah, okay, so that's a little helpful compared to his fellow archers, which are none of them. None of them at all. FE10, he kind of grew up, to be fair. He looks a little better. He now joins as a sniper. I said no promoted units, but the thing about Rolf in that game is that he joins among other tier 2 units, so I still don't consider him pre-promoted. I also need to grab Leonardo from the bottom in a little bit. Let me remind me of that. But yeah, we got... okay, so he's still worse than everyone else in his team. And yeah, that sucks. He's still worse than everyone else. It's just everyone else got better too, and they improved by a little bit more too than Rolf did between FE9 and FE10. They're still not very good, but at least he's somewhat salvageable. When he promotes in that game from sniper to marksman, he does gain 3 range, which is kind of nice. It comes with a huge accuracy drop that I don't think he can really afford. I don't remember his hit being particularly good. I know Shinon can afford it, but his skill is a lot higher. Even he has hit rate issues, so I know Rolf has it much worse. He has some ballista utility in his joining chapter, where all the Lagoos are trying to get to the final point. But you gotta help him out a little bit by shooting some guys with ballistas. He can do that, that's kind of nice. That's like what Will does and like what Dorothy does in the early game, like Waltz. It's kind of nice. But I think he's statistically a little more salvageable than the others. He can definitely train up back units and rating down fairly easily. I think he has some potential to cap stats too. Because I remember his growth actually being pretty damn good, because like rating down has pretty good growth overall. But I think he can do some bonus experience to be like fairly decent. Not great, but I'm gonna put him like around here somewhere. Like this seems about right. He doesn't really have the he doesn't have the combat potential that these two have, but I think he still has a little more to his name than the other guys. Let me grab Leonardo. Alright, I found a pretty boy. I don't know why I forgot him. I remember he was there when I was like gathering everyone, but somehow I overlooked him. So Leonardo, his collar reminds me of the Black Knight. I don't know why I'm suddenly bringing this up, but it does. He's in a Dawn Brigade, which gives him a couple of chapters of free utility, where you again have no alternative, so his chip damage is nice. Not a whole lot of people can really make use of his chip damage though. I think he can sometimes set up kills for Nolan, who's like the main damage dealer until he gets Soth. Can be good, but long term he has the same problem as all these other guys, right? He just cannot counter on enemy phase. There are some flyers, but he doesn't one round them. His strength is notoriously bad. He has cancel, which is a very funny skill to give to an archer, because it's like a chance-based thing that prevents enemies from countering, but they're already good at avoiding counters, so it was completely pointless. His speed isn't very good. It's not good enough to double. In fact, he gets doubled and one-rounded by a lot of hard mode enemies. He looks very bad statistically very quickly. Now, I will say, in part 3, when the Dawn Brigade is very underleveled, he can actually help out a bit. He gets a personal weapon. I don't remember how to pronounce it. I used it as my nickname on IRC for a while. Yes, I'm old. Like Lunasud or something. I used it as a name because it was funny and people couldn't type it for... because it's such a complicated name. It gives +5 speed, and that doesn't let him double, but it stops him from getting doubled sometimes. And when you give him Beast Foe, which is a very heavily contested skill in part 3, because it basically just means you now want to kill Lagoose enemies, which is 2/3 of the 3 maps Dawn Brigade gets to play. But you can actually do like decent with it. He can survive a hit at base level, he can kill Hawks in 313, either shoot them down with a ballista themselves, or let the 313 archer take care of it and use his own bow instead. But the effective weapon stack-ups, the effectiveness of the weapon stacks up very well against the Hawks there. So he has his uses, even without any training, but not a whole lot of it. I would say he's like Waltz level utility, roughly, like maybe a little better than that. He's okay. He can be good in the long term, but I think his like specialties are like weird stats that don't matter. Like he has like high resistance, if I remember correctly. That's super weird. Just a weird archer guy, but hey, at least try to do something different. Maybe he's a Ronan reference, because Ronan also has high resistance. Magic and resistance are the same stat in that game. Alright, now we get to 2 games that I haven't played very much of, but I still wanted to include. So we got Virion here. I have never used him long term. I actually had a playthrough going in on Awakening Heart where I was using Unita and used before, but Virion was one of them. I remember him being very bad, even for hard mode. I remember him being at the bottom of almost every Awakening tier list I've ever seen. In that game you get to reclass all over the place, so you don't even have to be an archer. But if you want one, you can probably find a better one than Virion. Actually, you can't really reclass very freely, not as freely as like Shadow Dragon. But still, I'm sure you don't want this guy. I'm pretty sure he's fucking bad. I just don't remember exactly how bad. But I know his stats are not very good. I know he doesn't really do anything to make himself better than what he is. And he can't really make use of the broken pair-up system very well. I think he's actually a decent pair-up bot for other people, come to think of it, especially in the early game. But overall, Garbo tier unit. I'll put him around here, but really I have no idea how good he is. I have no idea about this guy. I just wanted to not forget him, which tends to be something I do sometimes. Then we have Takumi. I had to open the Birthright characters for him, which is always a very bad sign because I haven't played Birthright. I've played Revelations like halfway through now, and Takumi is very impressive in that game, so I'm going to rate him based on that. I actually kind of like him there. He doesn't have a great enemy phase, of course, but there are some spots where he can set up 2 range enemy phases, so it doesn't always have to be the case. I made him a Kinshi Knight. I have no idea if Sniper or Kinshi Knight is better, but generally I favor the route that gives him a mount, so I went with the Kinshi Knight. The Fujin Yumi, whatever you want to call it, pretty goddamn strong. Personal skill makes him pretty strong if I pair him with like Jacob or Camilla or something. Someone who's higher level, he'll deal extra damage and take less. He's a little fragile, but I am playing on hard mode, so that's understandable. Not a whole lot of people can tank multiple enemies in that game, so I don't really blame him for it. I think he's okay for what he does. I'll put him around here somewhere maybe. Like Revelations is a very enemy phase heavy game overall, I feel like, especially once you get all those royals. Especially Xander and Camilla and like, I mean Reyna as well is like better than him, but not a whole lot of other people. So actually I would maybe say he's one of the better ones here actually. If you think about it. Really fucking good in Revelations. I don't know how good he is in Birthright though, that's the question. And I haven't played any, like I've only played Conquest fully, so I can't really appreciate him fully. But I feel like he belongs around here, or maybe, I would say Ryan is maybe better than him in FE12. I don't know, I'm having trouble deciding where he should be, so let me know down below. I know I don't have Setsuna on here. I was planning on having exactly 2 rows of characters. Of course, that kind of got ruined by this. But the thing is, I haven't used Setsuna at all, except in like a very brief bit in Revelations. So I guess I can grab her and put her in a low tier if that makes you happy. There we go. I have no idea how good this character is in any game, so I'm just gonna put her on the list, and then you can tell me where she should go. This is my instinctive feeling based on Revelations, basically. She's probably like around this bad, basically. At least Virion joins early. But I have no idea where she belongs in Birthright. Probably a little higher because I know she joins a lot earlier in that, and you can use her a lot. But in Revelations, the unit balance is just completely whack. So completely understandable. So that is a tier list. As you can see, none of them made it to A tier. Maybe Takumi or like one of these guys deserve to be here. But overall, I think this is alright. Let me know what you think, and also let me know what other archetypes you would like me to tackle. Still working on the Lord one, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this one. I really like making tier list videos for you guys, so yeah, I'm gonna keep doing them for as long as you guys keep liking them. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Peace out. Later. Bye bye. Love ya.